Welcome back. I'm happy to be back. We're going to read some news. We're going to solve the world's problems. The Idaho Rush Report. Let's start jumping into it here. It's been a while, about a month since I was last on here. Life's been busy. Hopefully it's been good for you as it's been good for me. We're going to dive into some national news. Let's see what's going on in the world. Right now we're on Fox. We're going to jump to some other sites, but Fox News. You know, I don't know what the appeal on some of this news is. There's barbecue. I have no desire to read that. No desire. Especially it's got Chuck Schumer on there. That's usually a turnoff. Puts me to sleep. Let's see here. Nancy Guthrie, that's the other thing that I have not been following. It is very sad. I'm wondering what will ever come of that, but I have no desire to read it. There are many people that go missing every day, and that's just a high-profile one. Let's see here. A.G. Bondi's binder strategy turns House hearing into political firestorm. You know, that's true. That was a terrible House hearing that she had. She did not do great. Bondi's binder strategy. Is that the Epstein binder that she waved in front of the cameras a few months ago? Let's see here. What's this one? The overstuffed white binders appeared a few moments before she exited her motorcade. So this is a different one. Let's see. Interesting. So this is just some clickbait news. Apparently they're speculating on binders that they saw near her. That's the tough thing with news. There's so much junk out there. It's hard to know what's even worthwhile. Let's see what we got on the politics tab. Let's see. Everybody loves talking about Donald Trump. Good, bad, or indifferent. U.S. troops blasted through steel doors like it was paper mache to snatch Maduro. You know, that's one thing that, regardless of what your stance on Venezuela is, Trump is very proud of the job that the troops did. And for good measure. That was a very, very pivotal moment in the world stage. Our troops, without a single casualty, took one of the worst dictators in this hemisphere and his wife captive in just a few hours. If I were him, I'd be bragging about that too. Blasted through steel doors like it was paper mache. You know, we've had tools to blast through steel doors for quite a long time. Let's see. Destructive president doubling down on stupid. Newsom and AOC trash Trump at European summit. You know, if there was any headline that said echo chamber, that would be it. Newsom and AOC trash Trump at European summit as they raise their 2028 profiles. Either one of those candidates I would put on the same level as Kamala Harris. They are caricatures of what used to be a formidable Democrat Party. There was a point in time when I thought the Democrats had it all figured out and they were going to just trash the Republicans. I don't know if it was their ego, their hubris. I don't know if it is just a new generation of idiots coming on board. So bad that the whole thing crumbled for them. Even as bad as the Republicans were, the Democrats got worse. I hope these two stay in the public spotlight for many, many years to come. That will spell success for the conservatives. I'm a conservative, and there's a lot of issues. There's a lot of issues that I'm very conservative on. I have a hard time claiming to be a Republican or an independent or a Democrat. Conservative, that leaves it up to me to define what conservative is. And I like that. I like that. Some things I probably agree with the Democrats on. Excuse me. Some things I agree with Republicans, some things liberals, and some things conservatives, but that leaves it up to me to decide and for me to defend. I hope these two stay in it. Here's the new clown, New York. Trump rips Mamdani. Local Dems as activists override government move at New York City monument focused on theatrics. You know, sometimes you don't even have to read these headlines. It's just paints a picture of a part of the world. Yeah, it's not even worth reading. What's that going to do for you in your daily life? Who knows? Let's see here. Let's see if there's is there anything worth reading today? Let's see. Trump is signaling he's more willing than before to lean into Iranian regime. Let's talk about Iran for a minute. This is before my time. Now, there's movies about this. There's lots of history. It is not hard to look up and learn about. Iran was the golden child of the Middle East. At one point, they were a beautiful country. Beautiful country. There was freedom. There was liberty. You could be whatever religion you wanted. Most likely one of the Abrahamic ones, but yeah, you could be any religion you wanted. Women were respected. They could have an education. They could drive. And that's the tough thing. That all came crashing down. I don't know what it would be like to lose the hope that those people lost. We're talking 2 generations of lost hope. I mean, you think, if you're a Democrat out there listening to this, if you hate Trump and you feel bad, I want you to go read about what happened to the Iranians in the 70s. I want you to go read about that. That would be loss of hope. That would be terrible. If you're a conservative and a Republican, if you thought seeing Joe Biden win the election and then going through 4 years of all of that, I don't have to describe it for you. We all lived through it. That was nothing. That was nothing compared to the hope that was lost from the Iranian regime change in the 70s. And they have lived through it. And they have survived. But there is still a generation that remembers what it was like to be free. And the generation they raised have some inkling of that. Now we're on the 3rd generation. My hope is that the Iranian regime does change. I would love to see the Islamic State that was created there to fall. I would love to see peace in the Middle East. No more instigation, no more wars. My generation grew up under the wars in the Middle East. We don't want that. We want peace. We want prosperity. We want that for those people over there. That's not too much to ask. And I think we might get that with Donald Trump. Regardless of which side of the aisle you're on, I think we can have peace in the Middle East greater than we've had in decades, maybe ever. Trump would say ever, probably forever. I think we can have that peace. I think there's change coming to Israel. I think there's a changing of the guard that will happen. I think a lot of the Islamic countries in the Middle East, they are tired. They are tired of the image that has been created over the last 30 years, the terrorist image. I think we're going to see another, not an Arab Spring. We're going to see a democracy spring. We're going to see a liberty spring in the Middle East. And I hope it starts with Iran. They have long been a sponsor of terror. We have subsidized them to the tune of billions of dollars. Billions of dollars. And all we have to show for it well, here's what we have to show for it. It's a massive money laundering scheme, as these dollars that are passed through our NGOs and our aid organizations, it is all under the guise of creating peace or creating aid, and it's a giant tornado. It goes through everybody's hands except ours, and all we do is sponsor the hate and the distrust and the terrorism over there. I'm going to be following Iran. We're going to talk about that much more as we go on. I hope that doesn't fizzle out. I want a new country over there. I will take Iran as the 51st state. That would spell peace and prosperity for all of the Middle East. That would throw a giant wrench into the plan of the Chinese and the Russians. That would be amazing. Forget Afghanistan. If we could have Iran, it's game over for the terror organizations in the Middle East. Let's see what else we've got here. Let's see. Anti-ICE chaos erupts at Blue State County Board meeting after panel endorses detention center. You know, you've been reading about ICE for, a year now. A year. They've ramped up. They've been deporting thousands. We've had. I'll have to look this up. I think it's over 1 million illegal immigrants have self-deported. Just walked themselves or flown themselves or drove themselves back across the border. That's the kind of response we've had. That's a good response. You know, I'm seeing a lot of folks. I'm seeing a lot of rhetoric out there about ICE being the Gestapo. ICE is a state-sponsored terror organization. You know, let's talk. We can talk about the Iranians and what they've gone through. You go to a protest, fine, they let you protest. Then when you're sleeping in your bed at night, they come in, they bag your head, and you're gone. That's it. You're executed. We're not executing any of these immigrants. We're not executing them. We're going to war with criminals. We're going to war with those that have been taking advantage of our legal system and our prosperity in this country. And it's sad. I don't know how anybody... I've never understood sanctuary states. I've never... And we'll get into that in a minute. We all know why it's happening, but I've never understood that mentality where we want to destroy our own home. And that's what's happened. That's what's happened. Sanctuary states, there's only one reason for them to do that. You know, and it's under the guise of welfare. It's under the guise of the bleeding hearts of the West. Excuse me. It's under the guise of compassion, and it's wrong. It's just a lie. It's not compassion at all. There's only one reason you import people who don't have the best interest of your country into this country, and that is for power. It's for control. That's the voting bloc. You know, that and this is why ICE is so pivotal. It ties into the next point I'm going to make here, and it's something we don't see in the news. If you can allow 20 million non-citizens to vote, who says they're even voting? Who says anybody is voting? When you can import 20 million non-citizens into your country, and then you pretend that they have voting rights by not securing your election, all under the guise of compassion. Well, it's suicidal. That's what it is. But why would anybody anybody in this country who claims to love this country, why would they commit suicide like that? Well, I think it's the oldest incentive known to man. I think it's just money. We've seen a lot of people do a lot of things for a Klondike bar. You pay them some thousands and thousands of dollars. It's a simple thing to just change your vote. And this is happening on the local level. I'm not talking national. I mean, when you can change the city ordinances as a city councilman, and all you got to that doesn't cost you millions of dollars. That's thousands. Well, if you have an agenda and you want to push that agenda, and if you have millions or billions of dollars, that's just how you do it. And we've been asleep at the wheel. That's the fault of the Republicans and the conservatives. Too busy not participating in your local politics, and just want to be left alone. It's your fault. Things are decided by those who show up. That's probably one of the best lessons I've ever learned about politics. Things are decided by those who show up. For the last 20 years, conservatives haven't been showing up. Few of them have, but not enough. Not enough. I'm going to mention Epstein again here. That's the problem, and there's a lot at play here, and there's a lot at stake. I don't care about Epstein. And some of you may say, well, that's harsh, and you might want to fall on that sword, and that's your prerogative. Here's why I don't care about Epstein. A, it doesn't change anything in my daily life, so that's a big deal. And B, it doesn't change anything in my local politics. The things that he's accused of, 100% against the law, but the laws have always been there and they've not been enforced. Whether the corruption was by a red politician or a blue one, doesn't matter. It's been the same story for the last 30 years. And the corruption will continue. And those stories will continue. How do we change that? It comes down to the things that do matter. We need to secure our elections, keep our border secured. If we have access to the polls, if we have access, if the silent majority, if the working man, if the people who have not been standing up for their values, and I would say most people in this country, when it comes to voting, when it comes to family, when it comes to education, when it comes to safety, I'd say a vast majority of the people in this country are conservatives. There's some squeaky wheels out there who are progressive on those issues. But we hear it every election cycle. I want safe streets, I want good schools, and I want good jobs. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. Those are the things that speak to the majority of people that live in the middle. Well, none of those things are Epstein. Enforcing our laws, fixing our laws, those things can really change the next Epstein. That can prevent it. That can give teeth to the people who wish to enforce those laws. But that's what's more important. That's what's interesting. We have a lot of people on the right, a lot of people on the left who are using Epstein when it suits them. They all boo when they find their guy in the documents. They all point fingers at the other side when they find the other guy in the documents. But what's actually coming of this? It doesn't make sense. And here's my take on it. Here's my take. And this may be right, this may be wrong. I'll bet $1 right now. Whatever I say today, tomorrow something new is going to come out on this issue, and we're going to learn something new. But the Democrats under Joe Biden had these documents. Whatever Trump inherited for his second term, they had those same documents for 4 years. Why didn't they go after Trump? Why didn't they go after all the conservatives? Why didn't they use those things to tank Donald Trump? If he was in it, that's a head scratcher. It doesn't make any sense. They could doctor him. They could redact him just for the things that they want to damage Donald Trump. Whatever is there, they could have, but they didn't. It doesn't make any sense. Put the shoe on the other foot. Why hasn't Trump released the documents if it was so damaging to his opponents? Well, I think it's for the same reason nobody has. I think it's for the same reason that a guy like Epstein has ever existed. It's leverage. You don't get rid of your number one piece of leverage when you need it. Epstein is leverage over the people that that he has to deal with on a daily basis, whether it's geopolitical or whether it's in Washington. I bet we get the biggest release of the documents in the final days of his term. Or depending on their plans, we will get the biggest release of the documents and the truth if they believe that J.D. Vance will succeed Trump. It will be in his final days of his final term. Otherwise, why give up your bargaining chips? And that's nasty to think about, but that's Washington, and that's how it works. So there are more important issues here, and this really is four-dimensional chess. There's not just one issue that's most important. We've got to get rid of the illegal immigrants in these sanctuary cities. We've got to fix our elections. And we've got another census coming around the corner, folks. That census will decide the legislature in our country for the next 10 years. That is a huge deal, especially if you as a conservative or a Republican are looking at who's going to succeed Trump. Well, folks, if we've been counting 20 million people primarily living in sanctuary cities, primarily living in blue states, no wonder they've had such a stronghold on us. No wonder it's such a lopsided balance in the legislature. We're hanging on by our teeth, folks. I mean, have you ever woke up and thought, hey, I feel like a lot of this is just common sense. Why is it looks like half the country doesn't even believe in common sense? They don't believe in proving, I got to show my ID at the grocery store. I got to show my ID to fly. That's the thing. How many people fly in this country? And we got real ID. I had to go dig up my birth certificate and some proof of residence with a utility bill, just so that I could prove to the TSA that I really am who I am. That doesn't make any sense. But we've got real ID, and you don't have to show your ID in these states to vote. That's the most fundamental right we have in this country, and we're giving it away. Now, I've heard all the constitutional arguments, and you can't create an undue burden on anybody who wants to vote. And well, it's not an undue burden to prove that you're a citizen. That's not an undue burden. We're going to argue about that for a long time, but I would say the silent majority of the people in this country say, yeah, you know what? When you're, and this, we just had Thanksgiving and Christmas dinners a little bit ago. Number one thing that proves you need ID is when you're sitting around the table and the conversation gets a little bit passionate, and some guest speaks up. Well, who are they to voice an opinion at your dinner table? Isn't that kind of a funny thing? That's how this voter ID issue is for me. You plan a dinner, you invite all your family, they bring a friend or a boyfriend or a girlfriend with them. You've never met this person, and they feel equally inclined to share their opinion with the rest of the family. Now, that's kind of silly. It's kind of presumptuous. That's the same situation across the country. That's what we're dealing with, folks. People who don't have the citizenship, people who don't have the vested right of this country. If we haven't talked about war yet, if we go to war, if we have a draft, me as a citizen, I'm going to get drafted. And that's the level of intensity I take a lot of these arguments. Me as a citizen, I am willing to go to war to defend my version of my country. I say my version because I would not go to fight, and I would not motivate myself thinking of my political opponent's version of this country. But I will fight for my version. I will fight for my conservative values. If you're not a citizen, you have no obligation. You have no skin in the game. Regardless of your circumstances, if you want to live in this country, go through the proper channels, become a citizen, and have skin in the game. And that's you don't get to have a voice at the table if you're not family. Well, you want to join the family, become a citizen, and you get to have a voice at the ballot box. And I'm sorry, if you are not a citizen, no voice. If you're not part of this American family, no voice. Moving on. Y'all can let me know what you think of my opinions in the comments here. Let's see here. All right. Let's see here. Get my thoughts together. Okay, we jumped over to CNN. Let's see what they got here. More Nancy Guthrie. I don't care. It's another missing person. We've had thousands of missing people in this country. I hope they find her, and I hope she's okay. I hope they find the scumbags that did that, but I'm not interested in that one. Let's see. Trump privately lashes out at GOP. That's more clickbait. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They're just muddying the news. Let's see. Let's jump through CNN. I always like to jump over to CNN and see what the other side is talking about. More Nancy Guthrie. Right, clicked on the U.S. News tab. There might not be much here. The news cycle these days is so strange. U.S. strike alleged drug boat in Caribbean. U.S. strikes alleged drug boat in Caribbean. That's a tongue twister. Killing 3. This is something I can't believe. This is another one of those common sense things. I cannot believe there's a large portion of this country, and maybe it's not large. Maybe this is just the squeaky wheel and the political bias. Just because it's Trump, they're going to go after it. Barack Obama, he was the drone strike king during his presidency. Now Trump is blowing up drug boats. And this is the other thing. We have had a war on drugs my entire life. We're talking decades. So some of the first Dragnet episodes were about the scary drugs on the streets. We've had a war on drugs going back to the 60s, unofficially. Finally, we're actually having a war on drugs. I mean, isn't that crazy? And half our country, supposedly represented by junk news like this, it's portrayed as if that's a bad thing. We're finally going to war on drugs. I don't think, how many billions of dollars have we wasted in our school systems and in our advertising, on our billboards, and Billions of dollars, folks. Wasted. And wasted on what? A supposed war on drugs. I think it's another money laundering scheme. I really, it's really like just a feel good policy. It's another way to funnel. We'll do a war on drugs bill, and it's 99% pork and 1% going on to the war on drugs. It's another one of those feel good policies where everybody likes to say it, and then nothing happens. Hate them or love them, if you care anything about drugs in this country, Donald Trump's been the #1 anti-drug president. He has closed the border. He has reduced the trafficking across the country. He has put tariffs on countries that have been smuggling this into our country. He's the only person who's actually been tough on drug cartels. We all laugh at him for the first term, and I'm going to build the wall, and Mexico's going to pay for it. He's smarter this time around. He's not messing around. Right now, Cuba is blockaded. They don't have any fuel. Venezuela, they're our next 51st state. We don't even need Canada as a state. They can just sit in the background. They are, as far as Canada goes, they are the most insignificant country that I can think of. They enjoy the safety of the northwestern hemisphere. Right now, Donald Trump is doing all the work, and he is going to bring peace and prosperity to the rest of the Western Hemisphere. If he can secure South America, bring prosperity to the people in South and Central America, they won't be coming to the border, regardless of all the predators out there and all the money from the NGOs that have just been funneling people to our border. Yeah, I know people want to live in the United States. There's a chance that they can have a piece of the old-fashioned American dream of prosperity. Let's bring that prosperity to their country. Same thing in Iran. Donald Trump is the only president that's at least brazen enough to say that he's doing that. Yeah, Venezuela is about oil. Well, yeah, and at the same time, let's bring billions of dollars of infrastructure upgrade to Venezuela for the oil. Let's bring peace and prosperity. You don't think the people in Venezuela, Cuba, Mexico would just love to not have crime and fear in their streets? I don't want to live in a country run by a mob. I really don't. I don't want to live in a country run by a cartel. I don't want to live in a country run by an Islamic State gang. I've got my own problems, but I want to live in a country of freedom and liberty. I want to live in a country where I can deal with my problems and I can be treated fairly under the law. And I can go to battle for the values that I believe in. You can't do that in these other countries. You just can't. It's survival, and people will do what they have to do to survive. Donald Trump is the only one fighting for that. That is a conservative value. That is why I look at headlines like this. U.S. strikes alleged drug boat in Caribbean, killing 3. Well, I applaud that. I hope every drug boat gets blown to bits. I hope they get blown to bits so well they stop coming. That's what I want. That's what I want. Let's see what else we have here. We'll just scroll through it. Let's see. Wisconsin fisherman transforms old porta potty into cozy ice fishing shanty. I think shanty's a good word for it. I'd swap out a vowel there. I'd call it a shinty. I think that would be better. Old porta potty shinty. Now that's the only one where you can catch fish and drop fish at the same time. It's multifunctional. Stay away from the blue water, kids. Let's see here. Man on horseback wrangles loose cow in Florida neighborhood. There's only 2 states where that would make a headline. Idaho and Florida. opposite ends of the country, but those people, I think they're connected, like entangled particles. Very much the same DNA. Yeah, that's funny. All right, I think we're running out of news here. There's so much to dive into. We've covered most of the important things. Let's see. Let's jump over to some Idaho news. That's in my name. Idaho Rush Report. Let's see what we've got over in Idaho news. What do we got here? Idaho Statesman. Horrific injuries in school zones spark capital plea. Keep our children safe. Proposal in front of the legislature would enhance penalties for speeding through school and construction zones. Makes sense. Don't do it. You know, this is a really simple example of another truth when it comes to politics and when it comes to human nature. And you see it here. Enhance penalties for speeding through school and construction zones. Incentive defines behavior. You know, if you want to discourage something, increase your penalties. There's nothing wrong with that. But how you go about that, on what things you incentivize and de-incentivize, that's where we get our political camps. But yeah, incentive, that explains behavior. Let's see what else we've got, folks. Rain and snow headed to Idaho. That's going to be a headline all the way through 4th of July. Horrific injuries in school zones. Yep, we talked about that one. No more bans on starter homes. Let's look at this one. Housing is a hot topic in Idaho. Everybody wants to live here. Except for you. If you're in another state, stay where you're at. This is why I broadcast to wherever you're at. You don't have to come here to listen to me. All right. High construction costs, plateauing rents, and busy West State Street traffic corridor are hindering already approved apartment and housing projects northwest Boise. Let's see here. Well, you know, that's something that's true of a lot of towns, not just Boise. Boise, they've got most of the population, but here's the deal: we've had such a low cost of living, cheap property. We've enjoyed the fruits of the Republican conservative stronghold that's currently here and currently dwindling, thanks to the dilution from out of state folks. But you look at any moderate sized town in this state, it's the same thing. We all suffer from the high construction costs. There's not enough competition amongst builders. Real estate is high. You know, we're seeing it from the middle class moving out of these overtaxed areas on the West Coast. They're moving here, and yeah, their money goes far. That's raising prices. That's raising prices. Prices have been going up for a long time, and they just want a good place to live. However, they bring some of their baggage with them, and now we're dealing with it. Well, then we end up with some of their same problems, for the overcrowding and the social issues that they dealt with in their very overcrowded places they used to live. And then, you know, we overregulate ourselves, and our government gets bigger to deal with the nuisance and tort of living with other people. You know, there's a reason why you kind of want more cows than people where you live. I mean, it just makes sense. You ever have a disagreement with a cow? Ask a rancher what they do. Just invite them over for dinner. It's fantastic. Let's see here. Yes, we need more home ownership. That is the number one way to wealth. If anybody if there's any Dave Ramsey fans out there, it's true for most people. Number one way to wealth: own your home. Get it paid off. Just makes sense. We need more starter homes, though, guys. Forget the 50-year mortgage. Nobody wants that. Let's give people opportunity for prosperity. Let's see here. New Meridian Bar, Idaho Schools. Idaho Schools face special education funding gap. That's a good one. You know, this is going to have its own episode altogether. Um, I've got so many stats I want to share with you. I'm going to do an Idaho education episode here soon. Uh, 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 here's a snippet. We've got corruption, we've got incompetence, and we've got a whole lot of people that just don't care. In this state, in Idaho, corruption, incompetence, and carelessness. Well, and let's call it ignorance. I would say most people in this state, as far as taxpayers and parents, probably 80% ignorant of the problems in our school systems. It is ridiculous. Special education funding gap. This is one thing. I think they ought to just cut this whole program. I really do. It's another one of those things under the guise of compassion and care, and it's a money laundering scheme, folks. And I'll bring the receipts in that other episode. Let's see. Under the bill, school districts can apply for reimbursement for any high-need student for costs beyond $30,000 per student, with maximum reimbursement up to $100,000 per student. The fund isn't intended to be used for routine classroom costs, like basic materials and supplies, and should be calculated to include any Medicaid reimbursements. You know, they're going to tell you lie after lie after lie. You go to any school district, and they are robbing Peter to pay Paul, moving things from different buckets. Here's the deal: we pay our taxes in this state to fund these programs at the state level, and then how many of our school districts are applying for bonds because they can't keep up their facilities, they can't pay their teachers. We buy all the school supplies as parents. You know, the only thing we don't do is write personal checks to keep the lights on. Our school system has failed, folks. It is a disaster. And if they would just listen to me, I could solve all their problems. But we're going to talk about that in a later episode. Holy moly, that's a topic to get me riled up. You think it's bad in Idaho? Man, some of these states are I do feel sympathy for them. Let's see. Idaho considers a way to crack down on illegal immigration. Would it work? Let's see what it is. They had a picture of cows. Let's see here. All right. This might be a clickbait. Okay, Senator Mark Harris, Republican out of Soda Springs, proposed one solution. Idaho could require government officials and large private equity companies with government contracts to use E-Verify, a federal government website that tracks workers' legal status and whether they're eligible to work in the U.S. Well, that seems pretty straightforward. You know, you buy a gun, and you got to fill out that form, and you got to, you know, I haven't worked for an employer yet that hasn't done I haven't had to do an I-9 for. I mean, come on. Why don't we just? Why isn't that? Why isn't that just standard? Any company. Why? You know, it's one of those common sense things. You think people do that. You think people verify. They do take things responsible. Apparently, we need a law to make people verify whether or not someone is allowed to work in the United States. Requiring only businesses with over 150 employees and state contract to use the program. You know what? This is the part that bugs me, and this is where technology is going to come in handy. We don't need a massive government program for this. You have a social security number. Tie that to your driver's license. Tie that to your birth certificate. On a state level, you know, there's so many things, so many times in just my life. And I'm not even that old. I've got gray hair. I'm not even that old. I've been fingerprinted, and I've done at least 10 FBI background checks just for the jobs and the work that I've done. And this is standard stuff. I don't work for the government. It's just wild to me that we're still playing around with laws that need to make this happen. Yeah, verify who you hire. Maybe just make employers responsible for hiring people illegally. That'll change it real quick. There's one thing. Here's another principle. If you want to solve a problem in the market, apply a fine to it, because people will find the quickest, shortest path, the easiest way to avoid that fine. They'll show you the path to make it happen. Let's see here. Let's see. Bringing reality to the populace. Oh, that's an interesting one. California podcaster created Idaho's biggest show. Well, I'm hot on his heels, folks. We're going to make that. We're going to change that. Like, share, and subscribe. We'll make this show, an Idaho show, the largest show. How's that sound? All right, jumping over to what is this? KTVB7. DHS leasing office space. DHS leasing office space in Meridian sparks community concerns. I haven't read this. I bet I can guess what it is. Community members are weighing in after St. Luke's confirmed DHS is leasing one of its office spaces in Meridian. My guess, I'm going to click on this and we're going to see if I'm right. My guess is somebody looked up, saw DHS was leasing space here in this office building, and they started screaming, "ICE, ICE, ICE." I bet there's nothing here, but they're making it controversial just because it's DHS. Let's see here. Community is weighing in. Anytime it says community and nobody wants to put their name to it, that means they found Bob on the corner, and someone named Bob is giving an anonymous opinion, and this is clickbait. That's what it is. Non-issue, not a problem. Nobody cares, but by golly, it's going to get some clicks. Spokesperson with St. Luke's confirmed DHS is leasing administrative office space at its Portico North building in Meridian, but stressed the location will not serve as an ICE processing facility. See, they're just coming out preemptive. Hey, they know what this question's really about. It's just office space. It's not an ICE processing facility. Let's see here. I scrolled too far. Let's see who Bob is in this article. Let's see. Still, the announcement is drawing strong reaction from some in the community. Bob. Nobody really cares. Michael Satz, a community advocate. A community advocate. That's his title, a community advocate. Michael Satz, a community advocate, says he is concerned about the potential impact on both the community and the hospital. What impact? You know what's going to have a worse impact on St. Luke's? When they lose their tenant out of their medical office building that they own. How about that? How about you let a government agency have office space at a St. Luke's office building? It's going to have a bigger impact if you chase them out of town, especially where they're doing the work that our lawmakers haven't done for decades. We're concerned this is going to harm St. Luke's as much as it's going to harm our community. It's not harming anybody. I mean, it really isn't, Mr. Satz. Let's see here. Satz said those concerns come just months after a large immigration raid in Wilder, where hundreds were detained during a joint operation involving ICE and the FBI. So that's the part that blows my mind. Why is it controversial for government officials to finally do their job? Doesn't make any sense. Maybe if DHS moves out, they can open up a Somalian daycare or something like that. That'd be fun. Bet he'd have no problem with that one. Let's see. Let's jump over to East Idaho News. See what they got here. Food. This is how you've got a pretty middle of the road news source. Top stories about food. There's one thing that transcends all party lines. That's going to be food. Food or taxes. Let's see here. Okay, let's see what we got here. Inflation slowed in January, but prices still biting. Yeah, prices are still biting. Let's see here, and we'll talk about that in a second, then we'll wrap it up. Some of these things, it's just wild. It's like AP stories that are just why even share. Let's see. Jefferson School District 251 adopts 4-day school week. Very good for them. Very good. If they can't find efficient ways to make 5 days a week beneficial, cut back your costs. If you've got facility costs of 5 days a week, cut. We're talking running buses, heat, electrical, power. Cut 20% off of that. Go to a 4-day week. What I'd like even better. I don't, and this is something that school districts, especially in Idaho, they can't figure it out. We got too many hacks in the state board. It doesn't matter if you're 4-day or 5-day. If your curriculum doesn't require you to have as many total days, just get the job done. Shorten your school year. You're going to save the most costs that way. But kudos to these guys. 4-day school week. Excuse me. Let's see here. Valentine's. Tears and excitement for Idaho Latter-day Saint Church. They get nation's first Swahili ward. Oh, that's exciting. Swahili ward. Good for them. Let's see what else we got here. Anything interesting? Man with sword enters random Utah home, injures residents. Well, that's Utah news. All right. I've been harping on this. They need to build the wall at the southern border. I was talking about the Idaho southern border. Everybody else was talking about the nation's southern border. I think we ought to have Utah pay for it. It wouldn't be a bad idea at all. We just got a couple valleys we got to cut off. The rest of it's untraversable. I think it'd be a great idea. We'd have to figure out Bear Lake, though. I don't know if we'd do buoys or we'd have to, stir up the Bear Lake monster a little bit. I don't know, but I think that's worth some funding, guys. Let's see here. Another DOE contractor at INL reduces staff by about 50 employees. Yeah, I could see that. Cutting costs. Okay. Well, let's see. Just want to harp on this inflation thing. Prices still biting. Of course they are. We are, we had Doge in the federal government, Idaho, and a lot of the conservative states. They copied that format when Donald Trump started his with Elon Musk. And they decided, hey, we're going to root out fraud at the same time. We're going to comply and participate with this Doge effort. And it's the perfect thing to do. You want to root out fraud, waste, and abuse. There's no excuse for it. Keep everybody honest. Don't let the bad actors take advantage of the country. But here's the deal: when you take billions of dollars out of the market, even though they were fraudulent, and even though the system is better for it now, you can take billions of dollars out of the market shrinks. If you take $1 billion out of Medicaid and Health and Human Services, well, if those dollars are no longer being spent at the hospital or the grocery store, guess who is seeing fewer dollars? It's your hospitals and your grocery stores. Yeah, that's the way it works. And this should be another one of those issues that transcends party lines. The Republicans and the right, they're going to harp on welfare recipients all day long, and then your folks on the left, they're going to talk about corporate welfare and how we shouldn't be, the right is people should be working, and then we'll give them a leg up. Let's help those who help themselves. And then those on the left are like, yeah, well, let's quit giving subsidies and handouts and everything to corporations and businesses, and let's quit giving tax breaks to businesses and all the rich property owners. And it's like, well, there's truth on both sides here. There's fraud on both sides. We could probably come together on this issue. The market's going to have to balance out. You remove billions of dollars, both the corporate and private, from the market. Well, yeah, your market's going to shrink. We're going to have to rebalance it. It's just the way it is, and I'm glad it's happening. I'm glad it's happening. We're going to have to swallow some hard pills as our economy changes and evolves and adapts to just some honest numbers. No more corporate welfare through our federal government. No more abuse in our federal and state governments with these social services. Well, fewer dollars going around. What we need to do, everybody in the legislature, what we need to do is figure out how to get the dollars that are real and true back into Idahoans' pockets. Citizens, that is. I want such prosperity in this country that anybody in the world wants to live here. I want that. And I don't care if they live here. Let's just do it legally. Let's make them want to be part of this American family. Let's make them want to be part of this Idaho family. Let's make such prosperity in this country and in this state that everybody wants to be here. But let's hold people accountable. And I don't see how that could be controversial, but I'm sure someone will find a way. Folks, it has been a fantastic time with you. I am going to be reading the news with you and talking about these issues. Hopefully we'll have some guests on, and we'll inspire some interesting conversation. Regardless of which side you're on, I want to hear from you. Leave me some comments and some messages, and maybe next show I'll respond to them, and we'll bridge the gaps that we have in our public discourse. It's been great. You all have a wonderful evening, morning, or midday, wherever you're at and wherever you're listening. It's the Idaho Rush Report. Good day.